In today's episode of the Pathmark Presents podcast, I have an interesting guest with me here today. I'm with Lyndsay Close, and she is hailing over from amBX, where she is a marketing manager and responsible for, a lot of marketing activities, generating leads and supporting the sales team, obviously, to achieve the vision, right? That's what they're in for, to transform the built environment through intelligent software. And today we're going to be learning about what amBX actually does, like who it's for, and how they help, workplaces, healthcare, and then education to, just have a way smoother operations. So welcome to the show.
Hello, thank you. Thanks for having me. So my name's Lyndsay Close, as you said, and I'm the marketing manager at amBX.
Very cool. So give us an insight. What is amBX all about?
So amBX is a smart software company offering solutions for the smart building industry. So historically, we've developed solutions that control smart lighting in commercial buildings. And our user-friendly tools allow designers and integrators to commission the solution and facility managers to control the lighting and gain insights from data gathered. However, our solution is flexible and nimble, so it can be applied to the wider smart building services as well. So we connect various systems and devices within buildings, collecting and aggregating data and allowing integration. So we almost act as a middleware layer as well that enables interoperability.
Very cool. Sounds like an operation system for a building in a way.
Yeah, it's kind of an enabler of smart buildings. It's that sort of middleware layer.
Yeah, very, very cool. So what types of companies are, leveraging amBX? Is it, I mentioned there are, health, education, workplaces, like maybe tell us a little bit more the types of clients that benefiting most from amBX.
Yeah, so it's, the construction industry is a very large and complex supply chain. So I mean, in terms of the sectors, I guess our core sectors would be sort of healthcare, office, education, but we're also seeing a lot of other applications that are emerging and are applicable. But if we look at the sort of traditional supply chain, it can be difficult for a company like us to break down some of the traditional barriers and target the right people. But I would say ultimately the people who benefit the most are the occupants inside a building. So, they have a connected tech-centric building that puts their health and well-being first. So obviously smart technology helps create healthier buildings that improve productivity, sustainability, insight, and health. So I think especially since the pandemic, it's important that we instill trust and make occupants feel safe, whether that's through occupancy analytics, through contactless technology, or sensors that monitor air quality, or even, determine things like cleaning schedules as well. So looking at how utilized an area is. But I would say our software is also hugely beneficial for owners and for facility managers as well, because smart systems obviously help improve the energy efficiency of buildings. So it highlights opportunities to reduce waste and improve operational excellence. And this has obviously been driven by government targets and a collective need to reduce the speed of climate change. But ultimately, 80% of buildings in 2050 have already been built. So there's huge potential within that retrofit market.
Yeah, super interesting, actually. Makes also for a great vision and great mission to work for as a marketer, I bet. Very cool. So how do people hear about amBX, and who would actually be sort of, the person that says, okay, we need to bring something like this on board? Is that like a, I don't know, facility operations managers? Like, where does that typically come from, that need, and how do they actually learn about you guys? In other words, what are the client acquisition channels?
Yeah, well, as I briefly mentioned to you before that, we're currently going through a little bit of a relaunch and a restructure. So we've just recently recruited a new CEO, and the for amBX is looking very exciting. But all of this change obviously means a new strategy. So this question's quite timely, and it's been good to actually go through some of these questions and think about it. But I'd say the main way that customers find us is probably through our network of partners and through our sales teams, like their connections. But obviously also marketing plays a big role. So we do a lot of thought leadership and awareness building to attract the right kind of people to our website. Once they're on our site, they can download research reports, they can find out more about our solution, they can watch demo videos, read case studies, start a live chat or whatever that might be.
Mm-hmm.
But as we offer quite a complex solution, it is quite a long sales cycle. There's a lot of education, validating, nurturing, and researching to be done by that prospective customer. So I guess it's about ensuring that we enable them to have all of that information and that process is seamless and they can gather all of that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, as I mentioned, we're going through a bit of a refresh. So our website at the moment is currently getting planned, and we're going to be, recommunicating the messaging and making sure that's in line with our new strategic direction. And obviously that's essential because effectively the website is our shop. It's where we direct everyone to. So yeah, and I think obviously SEO plays a big part in that as well. Making sure.
I was actually about to ask you, like, how do you think about the website? Like, what role do you think it plays, sort of, in people getting to know amBX? Like, how do you, as a marketer, think about the website in particular?
Yeah, I think it's kind of like the hub almost. It's where every other channel in my mind drives that person back to the website. So we're trying to just raise awareness, we're trying to reach the right people, and all of the aim of that is to get people back to the website so that we can then convert them through that channel almost. So we want them to reach out, we want to gather data, and we want to then be able to help them understand more about what we can offer, because it's never going to be as simple as a website where you're selling kind of clothes or t-shirts or whatever, and it's a lot more complex than that. So you've got you're always learning, it's always being tweaked. I think the website never stops evolving.
Yeah, it's been actually a common theme on the podcast, specifically for more complex software, that there's actually quite a journey. It's a very different way of thinking about the page than what an e-commerce example, as you were bringing it up. It's a very, very different journey. Yeah, super interesting that you highlight that. How do you think about the page, like in terms of its strengths and its weaknesses? Marketers that we have on the show, typically they're quite critical with what's going on the page. They always want to bring in a new way of, I don't know, messaging or experience. What do you think is the strength of the website at the moment versus where do you see room for improvement and development?
Yeah, I think we're performing quite well in terms of SEO at the moment. It's quite a niche industry. So it's about understanding what kind of terms our target audience are searching for. And I think we've got a lot of really good quality content on there, which is a real good plus point. But I think we now need to take it to another level. We need to strip it back a little bit and simplify it, because we're trying to tell everyone everything, but really we need to be tailoring that message to each person. So that's where we're currently at. And that's the aim over the next couple of months or so, trying to get to that point.
Yeah, I mean, we have a lot of guests actually that in that spot, that sort of like their content has been building up. They're starting and continuously understanding the personas better. Like, what you have in mind, like, what are you going to do? You're going to sort of like change navigations, change content, like high level, what you have in mind?
Yeah, we definitely need to strip back the navigation a little bit, because obviously the more simple you can make that process, the better. So it's just about looking at that journey, looking at the analytics and understanding how customers are currently clicking onto the website, what the flow is, how can we cut down some of those steps? Can we replace a big bulk of text with a quick, simple video or something like that, just to make it a lot easier to digest and understand. But also have like lots of downloads and extra information, so that we're seen as really being a thought leader within the industry and kind of expressing the knowledge that we have.
Yeah, that brings me to my next question, which is a bit related to this. Like, in your experience as a marketer, right? How do you typically go about figuring out why people do or do not convert on the website, right? I mean, you mentioned text changes, bringing in videos, but what's the methodologies? There are certain tools, approaches that you guys are leveraging.
Yeah, well, it's ultimately looking at the analytics, isn't it, and trying to discover what the journey is and why people aren't converting. And I think that's what's led us to our current conclusion that the messaging is a bit too complex. It's probably a bit too broad at the moment, and trying to just cover something for everybody, as opposed to being that niche tailored message for each of those audiences that we're trying to speak to. So I think that plays a big part in it, but also, through running different ad campaigns. So we're currently setting some up at the moment to test the messaging and target each of these audiences, so that then we can optimize that further and we can fully understand what works and what doesn't. I think all too often there's not enough work goes into that initial foundation building and the strategy, which is really essential. There needs to be a lot of time and energy put into that stage. Otherwise, it's never going to work. I think there's a temptation to rush to the end point without doing that initial work.
Yeah. You mentioned advertising there, just a small tangent, might be relevant, might not be relevant. We had that recently on the show coming up, that obviously Google is removing, third-party cookies from their browser. The retargeting is going to have a different shape and form. Is that something that, you guys already start thinking about, or is that what marketers already sort of, between the lines are talking about? What's your experience on that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a small part of what we do in terms of the marketing mix. It is kind of on the radar, but I guess because our audience are, historically quite traditional in terms of that construction supply chain. Yes, Google advertising and things form part of it, but it's not all of it. And there's lots of other ways that these people consume information and that we can reach out and target them. So yeah, I work with a really good agency, and they're fully aware of that, and we are running some ad campaigns, but I guess it's something we're going to have to monitor and see how that affects us once it's actually done.
Yep. Makes sense. Makes complete sense. Very cool. Let's switch gears a little bit and learn a little bit about yourself. There's a lot of content out there on marketing, right? A lot of content on growth marketing. How do you sort of keep sane? What is the resources that you like to read? What is your favorite platforms to check in order to keep yourself educated on, growth marketing?
Yeah, I think, for me, especially during lockdown, I became a massive fan of podcasts. I think they're just really good to listen to, like when you go for a walk or whatever you might be doing. It's something you can just consume information, and there's so many out there. So I think that's definitely a platform for me that I've started to use more and to learn information through. But as well, I think, there's lots of industry research out there. People put out really good blogs and press releases and things like that within just the general industry. So, reading all of that, and also attending events that are on. So there was a smart building event on in London a couple of weeks ago. So attending that, just doing networking and consuming information from various sources. Really, I think it's important just to always be on the lookout and always be listening, and you never know where you're going to get a little bit of inspiration from. Very cool.
Since we're slowly coming to an end of the interview, I would love to jump into our rapid fire questions. Are you ready for those?
I think so.
Very good. What's the last book you read?
So the last book I think was Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. So that was quite an interesting book, all about kind of the psychology of sleep and circadian rhythms and things.
If there would be no boundaries in tech, right? So everything is possible. What's the one thing you would fix for your role?
Oh, that's a difficult one.
We can get back to it.
I can't think. Maybe I was going to say partnership and collaboration. I don't know if that's something, if there was no boundaries. I think currently that partnership and collaboration is still quite a boundary, because a lot of software solutions are closed off and they're not open and they're not interoperable. So I think having the ability to be able to integrate with other solutions seamlessly and, be able to work together to build towards the best for smart buildings.
Yeah. Very cool. And the very last question would be, if today would be your first day working with the team at amBX, what's the one advice you would give yourself?
Give myself? I think it would probably be to be more confident in my abilities. I think it's very easy to doubt yourself and sort of shy away from new opportunities. But, ultimately, what's the worst that can happen? I think even if something doesn't work out as planned, you grow from it as a result.
Very cool. Lyndsay, I really appreciate you took the time with us today to share a bit more about amBX. And I want to give you the very last word, right? If people would be forgetting all that we discussed about amBX today, what's the one thing that they should be remembering?
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having me on the podcast. But I guess, to summarize, I think at amBX, we enable smart buildings with our innovative software. We open up new opportunities for the industry, and we want to partner with more smart building experts to keep improving the industry.
Thanks a lot for being a guest on Pathmark Presents.
Thank you.